I'm muted. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to MiHIN's Bits and Bytes, a monthly workshop where stakeholders can connect directly with MiHIN solution designers and product managers. Today's Bits and Bytes, you are here to connect to a MiHIN solution called ReferralsPlus, specifically for a new reporting module or a new reporting service that they have for the tool. I think I am going to just wait 2 more minutes. Do we have Matthew here from Holon?
I found the unmute button. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good morning.
Are you ready for this?
I think so.
Okay, so I've got a couple of slides here just to make sure everybody understands who we are, why they're here, and to get them comfortable with interrupting you at every step of the way. I'm sure you don't mind, right? Yeah. And to make sure that they know that we're here for their questions and to put into context however we can support their really good work. So we have 28 people with us today. Hi, welcome. You're here for Bits and Bytes, MiHIN's Bits and Bytes. Hopefully you know who MiHIN is. Hopefully you know what MiHIN is. Hopefully you know what ReferralsPlus is. And hopefully you're jazzed about the next hour. Next slide, please. First of all, are we recording this? Can we record this? Am I the one that records it?
It's being recorded.
Thank you so much. My name is Joanne Jarvey. I am the Senior Director of Outreach and Market Communications for MiHIN. I guess what you need to know about me is that I am probably the least technical person at MiHIN, but I care the most. No, I mean, everybody here cares about what we do, but what I am responsible for and why I'm here with you today is for the successful communication, right? Successful communication between MiHIN and our stakeholders, MiHIN and our clients, our stakeholders and our stakeholders, and the human beings of Michigan whose health information we are trusted and that we exist to help exchange. I am here to support the human infrastructure, the necessary human infrastructure that takes that technical infrastructure and puts it into practice. Our tech shall support our human beings and it shall not be the other way. Next slide, please. MiHIN. MiHIN is a nonprofit organization that provides technology and services to connect disparate stakeholders, our providers, our health systems, our public health agencies, our pharmacists, our labs, our behavioral health clinics, our community health information regions, to legally and privately connect them to share critical health information about their clients. We are an unbiased data trustee. We move and route and aggregate and contextualize information, but we are not producing any information, and we are certainly not here to compete with anybody actually caring for human beings. Does anybody have any questions up to this point about who MiHIN, why MiHIN, or why we are here today? We're all on the same page. Amazing for a Tuesday. Yesterday was a real Monday. Okay, next slide, please. So as you're going through we have the download, which is a monthly webinar. And the download this month was about sort of referrals. Like, what are referrals? Where do they fit into medical practices? Where do they fit into health information exchanges? What information is being shared? What, how do referrals make care coordination easier and more optimized? We really kind of just dug into that larger topic. And that was all to ease us into, the real necessity we see around using a tool like ReferralsPlus. and using a tool like Referrals Plus to its absolute, optimization, absolute optimal capacity, which is what we're learning about today. So constantly you should be asking, what solutions, what use cases, what data are you looking for? Why? What information do you need? How are you communicating? How can health information exchange help you and your patients? These are the questions that we're always trying to ask and that we're listening to feedback to. And so I would impress upon you to keep asking these questions, please, as we move through here. I think this might be my last slide. Next slide, please. Yeah, here's our agenda. That was me. Welcome, Joanne Jarvey. And now we are moving on to referrals training. Now, this is not training for all of our Referrals Plus tool. This is very specific training around reporting module. And it is my pleasure to invite and to welcome Matthew Muhammad, who will be taking it over from here. But Matthew, if I don't understand things, and that happens like all the time, I hardly understand anything. So if I don't understand things, I will be asking you those questions as you go. I hope you don't mind.
Of course not. I appreciate that. Interaction is always key. All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I'm just going to try and borrow some of your energy because I love your spirit with this. So hello, I am Matthew Mohammed. As she said, I am a senior manager of analytics at Holon. I am responsible for making sure that our internal and external stakeholders have access to quality data and actionable information. And so I am excited to share with you guys today, if I can steal the screen, I'm excited to share our new reporting capabilities. So I believe it was called Referrals Plus. That lands under a capability and an offering we call CollaboraNet. And so you will see users and our referrals reporting underneath that. For users, the idea, I'm hoping I can get rid of, there we go. Let's get rid of that. No, there we go. So there's usually two sets of questions that folks ask when they want to understand what's going on with our referrals platform. One is who is using it and how often. The other is for referrals, what kind of referrals are being put out there, what states are they in, what plans are associated with them, and then is there anything that I should action on immediately? What I'll be showing you is not MiHIN's data. It is going to be from our sales demo organization. Just for various reasons, security probably primary among them. And we're going to start with the users report. But I first wanted to point out that for anyone who has access to this application, you will be able to also scroll to the bottom. And if you're unfamiliar with the application Power BI, I've provided some training links to familiarize yourself. I don't normally intend to discuss how the application itself works. I'm going to focus more on the content. So I try to self-serve that application information. So users is intended to show the broad user base, including who could be using the platform, as well as who is using the platform, and then in what timeframes in which they've done it. You can see that here under a tenant of Holon sales demo. And if I drill in, you can see that we have a series of practices. And then each of those practices has a set of users. Some were in the last 7, some in the last 30. And then the potential users are any users that have been built into the system that could be using it, but may or may not be currently. We also want to keep an eye on when our first and last activity is for each of those hierarchical levels. If at any time you want to get into a little bit more context, you can start clicking around and all of the visuals will adjust accordingly. So if we were to click on the last 30 days, you'll see that things change. So typically we see folks want to know who's using it in the last 30, 60, 90, and then interestingly, who has never used it. We want to know this information because we want to understand where we want to go and provide additional training or knowledge around our offering. We also want to show you over time who is using it, how many people are using it, and then whether or not you have readership. If you want to get into a little bit more information on a specific context, like I said, you can click, but you can also drill through. So in this case, I'm going to go into the Holon multi-specialty practice, and I'm going to drill through to detail, and it's only going to show me the context for what I've just clicked. You can always back out. And if you get stuck, Power BI runs off of filter context. So anything that you're clicking or anything that you're seeing is inherently a filter. And so as you click on more or as you filter more on the filter pane, if you get lost, you can always hit reset and it will take you back to the widest view that is factory default. We also want to make sure that you know what you have access to, because folks who are what we call practice limited in their access may only see practices that they're associated to. And so we will display that here for you. If you think that's an error, clearly you're going to want to go and talk to an admin. I'm going to skip over org detail for now, and we're going to go right into the meat of referrals. So on the referral side, we are still going to show users. I'll give it a second. There we go. But we're going to show it in the context of referrals. So we're going to give you a little bit more information on who is doing what. And so I can go now from practice level all the way down to user level. And I can show you how many referrals that person has done, how many estimated patients that they've seen, how many referring or referred practices and providers, as well as impacted specialties. This is a flattened view. And so we are not going to repeat the same list for referring or referred. And that allows us to combine those data points. However, for quite a few of the other points in the reporting, we're going to focus on either referring or referred so that once again, we can cross filter and see more data in context. So for example, if I want to understand, let's say, my top referred providers, and I want to know who has been referring to John Dermatology, I can click on that user and everything else will filter to that context. If I don't like what I'm seeing here, if I want to adjust it a little bit, I can always come over to my filter pane and start limiting it further to just what I care about, and then continue on. Any questions so far?
Is this, so I know that's tough, Matt. Isn't it tough when you're like, hello, hello, hello? So I'm gonna, is this useful? Can we get like let's get a thumbs up. Are people following here? This is what you came to see. You are ready for this information, right? Thumbs up, any kind of
I do see some chat. Is
Great.
there
Yes, lots of yeses. We are here. We have signs of life. You're doing well. Lots of thumbs up. You may proceed.
Sounds good.
Before we move on from this screen, even though we're not going to go through each filter, could you at least show all the filters on the screen?
Sure. So this is the extent for the all pages.
Gotcha. Okay.
So with this, each visual has a filter context that you can specifically manipulate if you only want to change that visual. So that's the filters on this visual. And then there is filter on all pages. And this allows you to manipulate everything across all the pages for that report. So in this case, for security reasons, I'm filtering all of the pages on the referrals report to Holon sales demo. We are happy to take recommendations for enhancements on what additional filters you might like to see or what other visuals might be useful. So feel free to speak with your admins or your HOLON representative or your MiHIN representative for those options. Nothing further? Okay. Again, if I want to see just what Referrals demo has been doing, I can then go and hit drill through again, right click drill through detail, and it will take me to just that context. Let's move on to referrals. So for the referrals report, as I said, is broken out into different concepts. I want to know at a user level what's going on. I want to know at a general referrals level what's going on, what kind of statuses and what kind of plans. And so each of these is going to touch on a general concept. So in this case, for referrals, I am focusing on our declines, our completes, our age binning, and then our completes and declines over time. So again, if I just care to see, okay, well, what's been impacting my 85 plus, I can click on that and it will give me just that context. For statuses, I'm now able to, again, kind of drill through into different users and practices. But now I have some more detailed information around my workflow. So how many days does it take me to schedule, to accept, to complete, and then your days from accept to appointment. Later on, there's no data there because we haven't created any like garbage workflows inside of this demo environment. But if any of these numbers were negative, they would show on the quality assurance page. And that would be an opportunity to go and work with those users to understand why they're accepting an appointment after it has occurred. So you have your referrals by active status and closed status. So you can start to look at what has been scheduled and accepted on the active side versus what you have completed, declined, or canceled on the closed side. These would be your top reasons for those referrals, your top conditions for those referrals, and then what I'm calling your workflow days, which is a graph of your average days to schedule, accept, complete, and accept to appointment. If you start seeing these buttons for up and down or down that hierarchy, that gives you a little bit more opportunity to go what we call spelunking and understanding what in context is going on. So in this case, I've gone down to the month level and I can start drilling in a bit further into the details. For plans, this was a recent request. So I might want to understand here based on who's referring or who has referred, what are the health plans that are being impacted? And so we're going to give you those top plans by total number of referrals, those that were completed, and then I found of interest, which ones are declined. So if you don't see any real difference between completed and declined, that's probably a good thing. You're not necessarily focusing on which plans you like or don't like or are accepting or not. But if you're seeing a big discrepancy, that might be something to go and review and see why that is.
I have a question. Yay, sorry, it's me, Joanne. Matthew, this plan impacted, plan name and plan impacted. This is sort of like an in the weeds question, but how do you know? How do you get the information about what patient is connected to what plan?
At a high level, it's my understanding that
you do it through acres?
I don't know that I can answer that now. I can certainly follow up on that.
Okay.
When you are using the referrals application, there is context that's behind the scenes that we get from a data provider. And then when we surface that information, all that context is there. So whatever we're being fed is what's going to be displayed on the screen and is going to be logged here for reporting.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Taylor, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but I'm wondering where you get the contextual information for plan. I'll table it. Sorry. Thank you.
No worries. Is that something you'd like me to follow back up on?
I'm taking the action item, so don't worry about it. I'll follow up.
Sure.
Hey, Joanne, we've got some questions building up here in the chat.
Sure.
Yes.
So starting with Trevor's question, does this reporting show where the loop is or not closed? Starting at that one.
So I think that's probably under statuses. It depends on specifically what you're looking for. Any outstanding referrals would be here. So I would argue if you're seeing stuff from Q4 of 2021 and they're still accepted or scheduled, you probably got an issue. And so you might want to go and look at why those have been sitting out there so long. Does that answer that question? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. Is this data in real time? So we refresh this data, I believe, every either 4 or 6 hours. I am fed the data for the purposes of refreshing every 15 minutes. There is a cost to refreshing, and so we refresh as infrequently as the consumer need requires. So if you're coming in here, I would at minimum expect this to be up to date every day. I believe at a minimum, I guess at best, we would have this updated every couple hours, every few hours. So it's pretty real time, but it's not exactly real time. I see my questions are being answered. Thank you, Scott. Multiple times a day, every time. Yep. Are the reasons free form, or is there any set? I have gotten the impression that the reasons are free form based on spelling and such. I would have to follow up to see if there is any kind of codification of those values behind the scenes. I don't believe they are. Insurance is entered by the user. Okay. Yep. Joanne, is there? Can you speak more to this quote here? Helping with insurance entered. Is that something we were looking to do with the reporting?
Nope, Karen was helping me out. I took us down that road of understanding how the context for the insurance information, comes into play here. And Karen said that when, people enter this information when they're sending a referral. And I am just thinking, I'm just thinking about that step. I'm thinking about how, right. And entering the insurance field is optional, right? So it's not all, some of them uncategorized? Do you see the uncategorized? Yeah, right.
So
Karen said it's becoming a mandatory field, and I can kind of understand why it would be mandatory. And I just wonder also, Karen, and for everybody here, I'm wondering also if there's a way that we can help with that step. I don't know. I think I just came up with a whole new sector. No, a whole new solution.
Sounds good.
I see the blank here, so I guess those would be uncategorized. Yeah.
So you, I don't believe too many of these filters are locked. I have the ability to hide or lock them. So if you're seeing that there's no lock icon next to here, you're welcome to play with it, manipulate it, see what makes the most sense to you. We put in defaults to try and encourage a particular understanding of the data, but if you want to dig in deeper and you see a filter that, hey, I want to investigate further, but I don't like what I'm seeing, absolutely go and change it. So in this case, I have unclicked the hide blank values. And so now in context, you can see that I actually have 6 blank referrals 6 referrals that have a blank health plan. And then if I click on that, now I have context to what's happening there. And I should then be able to right click on referrals and get more detail on those specifically. So you can
Sure.
see at the detail level, we have all the detail you could possibly hope to have. And then you can see that our plan names here are indeed blank. So you have users and practices and everything that you could probably hope to go and investigate that further.
Joanne and Matthew, I've invited Chuck Blaylock, who's a subject matter expert on referrals. He'll be able to help address some of the answers related to plan information. And I believe the other one was related to reasons. Is that free form or not? So he'll be joining here in just a second.
Appreciate that, Michelle. Thanks. Yeah, Trevor, we're going to get to I think we're going to hone in on your question.
Does MiHIN have definitions for the referrals by closed status choices completed? Let me just see. They don't have a resource to meet its need. So from a reporting perspective, I am working from the naming convention of the status in the system. So if there's an interpretation of what that means in the workflow, I may not be personally privy to that. I might need to ask Chuck if he's aware. So I would say if it is, I think closed is just whether or not it's one of what we consider the closed statuses, which is you've either completed, declined, or canceled. So if a referral is made and they don't have the resources to meet the need, I would have expected that to be declined. Whether they've chosen that option, I guess, is a different question. And I don't know that we would have any way of knowing the intent as opposed to the action.
And Chuck is on the call.
Yes. So Matthew, I came in just on the very end of that. So can somebody just quickly summarize, and I can probably address that.
Sure. Which do we want to start with this question and then go from there? So
Yeah.
Does MiHIN have definitions for the referrals by closed status choices, completed, declined, canceled? It looks like they're wanting to understand if a provider doesn't have the resources to meet the need, which closed status should they be expected to be to use?
Okay, yeah, I get where you're going now. So there are reasons for closing a referral. So there's a drop-down list to choose from. So I know we don't capture those specific entries in our reporting. They probably could be captured. I don't know, Matthew, if you can even see them in the data sets that you have. But there is a finite list of reasons for closing the referral.
Yeah, I don't believe I can speak to closure reasons. It had been my understanding that the referral reasons were the reasons for creating the referral. I don't believe I have visibility to closure reasons, but if that's something we can take back as an enhancement, we certainly can have that discussion.
Yep.
All right, I see 2 more. Is there a way that the referring provider can mark the referral status complete if the receiving provider never marks it complete, even though the patient has been seen, excuse me, and the referring provider has all the paperwork back? Chuck, is this something you can answer as well in terms of?
Let me answer this one. Okay, so well, the completion, once the referral is complete, it is complete from the receiver side. So the office that has completed the service they will mark it as complete.
Okay, thank you.
But the referring provider cannot mark it complete.
So I think we might be at time. Is that the case? Did we have this for 30 minutes?
Yeah, we have this for an hour.
We have this for,
For
oh,
now.
excellent. Excellent. Well, yeah, let's keep those questions coming then, because I think I've just about gotten through everything except for the blank quality assurance, which I had spoken to prior, but I can show that real quick just to get us out of the way. So if you have a negative days to complete, which is where your accept is greater than your appointment, that's going to show here. I don't believe you can resolve the data itself, but at least you can identify who's got a wonky process for accepting after the appointment actually occurred. So with that, I'm gonna close this up and then we'll continue with questions. Sorry.
I want to make sure that we're getting to the heart of your question, Kelya. You are saying that if you're the entity that you have referred to has not marked the referral complete, even though it has been completed. Right? So, I mean, is that a situation where like you are like as part of the care coordination process, you must reach out to the organization that you've referred to remind them to complete it? Because I think I heard them say, yeah, right. So what happens? I see. Yeah, like how do you close out accounts if for whatever reason the partner, the referred organization doesn't do it? It seems like.
Yeah, within the referrals application, there currently is no way to force a closure. Once, I mean, if the referred office if they never close it, then it will appear to be outstanding still. And there's no way for that referring office to mark it as complete.
So that basically would require, you know, an outreach to them to get them to close it.
Correct.
Yeah, and it sounds like sometimes, you know, because this is like the real world and we're all just trying to make it. It sounds like even when you do, and they don't make that, you know, that action, that what happens is that you end up having to delete or mark the referral as canceled and make the reason as it was never actually marked complete. So essentially, like in your reporting, it won't come through as like good you have done, or that together you have done because you weren't able to close it out. That's what I'm hearing.
Right. It could be misleading in the reporting, because if it had to be canceled, it was actually completed, but you know, it had to be canceled. So it's kind of going to skew your results.
Right. Has there ever been a like a discussion about, you know, how to fix a report?
Sorry, was that a question for me?
Yeah, I mean, so let's say that you have deleted or canceled, but you know that it was actually accepted. Is there any way that you could, you know, like update the report with actual information, you know, with the actual actions that happened?
Sure. So my argument, I think, to that would be that while the report is read-only and there's not really a way to push application level changes back via the report, I would expect or suspect that if there are administrative processes that are required to clean up and close the loop for items that are maybe hanging out there or are unable to be closed properly through the expected workflow, those might be, I imagine, recommendations back to HOLON to say, hey, there's processes that may fall through the cracks that should be considered, and I would expect us to consider those as enhancements to try and review and fix for.
Right, yeah, and we
Um,
have, well, thank you for this, because we will take down these transcripts and we will, you know, send over these chats. So this will be helpful, I think. Is there a reason not to give the sender the ability to mark it complete for those cases? So why was it, you know, was there a hard and fast reason why a referrer couldn't complete and close out? I just want to elevate Matt. You're the reporting guy, right? So I guess this was a question for Chuck or Michelle.
Yeah, apologies. I'm gonna stick to what I'm moderately good at and defer to the smarter people in the room.
Good for you.
Joanne, ask that question one more time then.
Yeah.
Please.
Was there is there a hard and fast reason? Like maybe there's like a data, maybe this is like a best practice, you know, maybe there's data to back this up, but is there a reason why a referrer can't actually close out a case? It looks like it's something that is a real roadblock for people, especially when their partners just, you know, their partners look, sometimes people can just get referrals and just serve these people, and they don't have the capacity to actually close out the work, but the work has been done. So is it possible to consider thinking that maybe referrers could close out or complete the process?
So, again, we could take anything as a suggestion, but technically it could be done. But speaking through the workflow process, if a primary care physician has to refer his patient to a specialist, at that point he kind of has no control, because now that patient is under the care of the specialist. So it's kind of hard. They have to have some sort of relationship between the different providers and offices to follow up and get the proper feedback.
Yeah.
Now, just forcing the tool to be able to do something may not be the best solution, but definitely we can look at having that happen.
Or even if there's like an override and on the report it says like, look, this was out there, you know, like maybe even just putting it into a different place on the report. There was an override, it was canceled by the referrer, so that, you know, you could see how many times that happens.
Right. And Karen brought up a good point. Maybe after some timed threshold to have it just automatically done. That's a great thing to consider.
Yeah, Joanne, we'll take that back as an enhancement request. We'll go ahead and write it up. We'll send it back to you guys to validate what we've documented, and then we'll take that back to product for consideration.
That sounds like some really good work that's happening here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think we've started bleeding over into the process side of questions.
You knew that was going to happen, right?
Are there any questions on the analytics side, or are there any? I'm hearing that there's one request to look at potentially bringing in the closure reasons. So that data doesn't exist today where I can access it, but that's certainly something we can take back. I'm hearing that there is an opportunity to also, I think, look at the outstanding scheduled and accepted. So maybe a question for the room. So I love quality assurance. Just between us, I get a certain sense of pleasure in catching people in the act. So is there any kind of quality assurance that we could provide for referrals that are outstanding, right? Can we say that there is a referral that's outstanding for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Is there some way that we can say that there's a time frame that is inappropriate? Right. So what would be a good time frame to say 30 days for that outstanding before we have to close it? 90 days before we have to close it? What's the best time frame for that?
Matthew, that's a tough question. Because we don't really have a view into an office's scheduling.
Mhm.
Certain
Right.
offices are gonna be scheduled, 3, 6, maybe even 9 months out. Some are not gonna be as busy.
So one thing I then might propose is, and there's ways to make it work from a reporting perspective. We've done things in the past where we've said, okay, for any given practice level or provider level, we might say, we're going to take the average of their closure timeframe, and then we can compare any given point in their closure timeframe to that average, right? So using like Six Sigma or using something else, if we say that their average closure timeframe is 45 days from creation, we might add a percentage to that and say if they've exceeded that threshold, we're going to flag that for quality assurance, right? So you've exceeded some percentage of your average time frame.
That
So
sounds
I'm
like a
not
good place to
seeing that
start.
on quality assurance. That's really interesting. So when you go to the quality assurance, is it not built out yet, what you're talking about? Or do people get to set their own?
I'm proposing a new one in the context of what's been brought up here.
Right,
I
okay.
love quality assurance. I love holding people accountable. I love providing that actionable intelligence. That's part of
Right.
what reporting is supposed to do.
Right.
So if that's, I mean, I'd love to hear proposals back, but I mean, that's something I would suggest is if we have a quality assurance need to make sure that people are closing at a applicable rate and they're not doing it within a set time frame or within an averaged time frame, certainly I would say that's something we could add to this page. And I would encourage folks to think about that, like what gotchas in the workflow or process are worth considering. So the other thing I think I saw was that if there's a severely outstanding referral and they close it or they cancel it because there wasn't feedback from those providers, that's certainly something we could put in the quality assurance as well, as how many of those were closed with a reason that isn't just it was closed because we completed the referral. So that anything that you can think of to hold people accountable, we certainly want to have that in our quality assurance. Other ideas, other thoughts?
Thank you. What great partnership this looks like, collaboration here. I'm wondering, what are the next steps, guys? You said, I think we said like in our emails that like people were going to be getting emails or they would be being set up to this. What are the next steps here? Has everybody been set up the way that they need to be? What should people be expecting?
Did you mean set up in terms of accessing the tool with their links?
Yes, I did, Steph.
Okay, okay. Matthew, they should have all of that now correctly and be able to access everything that they need now, if they have the ReferralsPlus tool.
I'm afraid I'm not following the question. I'm sorry.
So I think what Joanne is asking is if they have a ReferralsPlus account and they registered for this event, they should have been given a link to Power BI and access to get their account password and all of that set up. So they should be good to go to using the tool now, right?
Yes and no. So going back to users, your access. So if you have a account in the application itself, not in Power BI, but in the Holon application, ReferralsPlus, then and that name and the email that was given to me corresponds with an account that I found, I have given you access. There's a handful of those. It is the minority of those folks who were invited. So I have communicated that back to the folks who have sent me those emails as who I did not find in the system.
Okay.
Those individual, it doesn't make sense to add them on the.
If they aren't the administrator.
Not only that, but like if I don't see them at all in the system, like,
Right.
it would not make sense for you to then grant them access to Power BI, where when they try to open it, it's going to throw an error saying that you don't have rights to see any of the data. We utilize the same access grants in the app as we do for row level security in the report. And so if you don't have on both sides, you're not going to see anything.
So
Okay.
for an organization needs to identify the user that should be accessing this report and make sure that they are like signed in on the application as such.
There is a profile. My understanding is that there is a profile setup that has to occur in order to get into the referrals application. And part of that profile includes a email address. And so we're going to authenticate on the reporting side against that email address to make sure everything's kosher. If you do not have that, like if you have an account, but you don't have the email filled in, then there's nothing to authenticate against, and we're not going to grant you rights. I believe, to more specifically answer your question, it's my understanding based on conversations I've had with Michelle and Michael that we should be having referrals admins have access to the reporting. It's not for me to say whether others should or should not have that access. That's really up to those two.
So
Okay.
for the list of folks that we did not have that information, there'll have to be follow-up with each of those folks to make sure that they can go back and make sure that that information is completed in their profile so that we can set them up. So that will be a follow-up post meeting.
Okay. We got it.
Okay.
Other questions for reporting?
Great. It doesn't look like it. Look, you know where to find us. You can always write me. I'm putting my email in the chat. We are scheduled to have another one of these sessions on Thursday, right?
Yes, Thursday at 1.
Great. And we've also recorded, I think we'll work with our partners at ReferralsPlus to make sure that we have, that we might be able to give people what they need. And I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you working with us. And we're here if you need us.
Thank you all for the time. I appreciate the audience.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Michelle and Chuck.